Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 22 of the series of tutorial on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look on how to generate another post format or how to print properly this new image post format in our front end. If you notice here, we have a slightly different style. It's pretty much similar. We have the same style for the header and the entry meta tag. The footer is pretty identical, but we don't have an excerpt and we have one full image that goes like full screen for all the width and height of our blog post, and plus we have a caption here in case the image uploaded has a caption. So let's check how we can handle all this stuff automatically for the user. Let's access our text editor, and the first thing that we have to do, we have to create a new template parts file inside the template parts folder to handle properly the image. So by default, a standard post format is gonna grab directly a content.php because our index page, our loop, is calling for content and get post format. So in our case, we're gonna have a content dash image to handle the new post format. So we have to create this new file. So new file, content dash image dot php. And in here we can, as a starter, like just copy completely all the code that we generated in the content.php and paste it inside this newly generated file, the content image. Of course, let's change this standard post format into image post format. And let's give it a custom class of sunset-format-image. Of course, automatically WordPress is gonna generate a custom class to specify that this article is a post format, but we wanna use an actual custom class because we don't know if in the future WordPress will change these classes, we rename these classes in a different way. So we wanna be sure that our theme is gonna work no matter what version of WordPress the user is running currently. So let's save it. Let's go back in our front end, and if we access the administration panel, let's do what I did. I created a new post, and inside I specified this post format as an image. I applied a live category and I insert a bunch of random tags that you can insert. I also uploaded a featured image that I'm gonna use to print in the front end, and plus I put some content here and a little bit of excerpt here. So what we can do now, first, if we access our front end and we refresh, we're gonna see that the image post title, the post that we just created, of course has the same exact style and is printing all the information in the same way that it's printing the standard post title. But of course we have to change something a little bit and we can start editing this stuff. First of all, in our content-image.php, we have to move this check if has post thumbnail as a first thing inside our article, because we don't want to generate a huge featured image or a huge container for the featured image if we don't have the actual featured image. So let's cut this and put it on top just after the opening tags of our article. Let's create a little bit of indentation to be more readable. And here we can put the div after the header. And now we can style the header in a different way to accept our standard featured image and the background image. So first of all, let's try to reuse as much as possible all the classes that we already created. So let's grab the background image to apply to the header, and then let's apply this style, inline style, with the actual featured image URL in here. We can delete the button container here because we don't have in our image post format a button, because the entire section will be clickable as usual as the title and the different post meta. And then we can copy the excerpt that we're going to use in a different way if we have a proper image and a proper export, so we can put it inside the header, and we can delete completely the entry content because we don't need it, we're not gonna use it. So let's save it. Let's see what we did in our front end. If we refresh it, of course, now we are gonna have the future image as a background image of our entry header, but our entry header is styled in a different way and is not really suitable for this stuff. So that's where our class, our custom class that we added in the article tag, it comes super handy. Of course, as I said, WordPress applies its own custom class here. If you notice, we have a post_format, post format image, but this type of class can change when WordPress updates itself, updates its core, they can update it. So always use your own custom class and you will be sure that that class will never change, of course, if you don't change it. So we're gonna use this main class that is wrapping all these entire section to style the classes that we already have. So let's go back in our file tree and let's access the sunset.scss. And of course, always remember to have your terminal watching for whatever editing you're doing to your SASS folder. Let's scroll down and we can customize the standard post format. Let's create another section that is going to be way shorter than the other one, called image post format, and then we can use the class that we defined as sunset format image dot sunset format image. So in the standard post format, we didn't style the entry header, so we are good to go to just like edit it and create a unique class that we're gonna use it. So entry dash header, and here we want to give it a height of 500 pixels. Save it. Let's go back in our front end that it's most likely whatever it needs, like all it needs to work. And you see, like, I just apply one single style and it's working properly. Like, I don't have to repeat this bottom part because I already defined it here, and all the style like simply applies to the entire section without me rewriting the style, because we are using the same classes but we're editing slightly the classes. So now we have to edit a little bit all the information that we have in our H1 and the entry title category and the entry meta category. So we have to override the H1 A tag and the entry meta A tag. So we can do it everything in here by writing H1 comma dot entry meta curly brackets A color white, and we can specify also the color white inside the entry meta. So all the font that is inside the entry meta is going to be white. Let's go back here. Let's check what we did. And of course, now it's white. Just this one is great because we didn't actually specify the whole. So the H1 and entry meta, they have to be absolutely white. So let's put this. And perfect. To avoid repetition, what we can do, we can actually copy these, declare another class, and the entry header, remove the color declaration. So we have just 2 declarations instead of 3. We don't declare the same thing too many times. And I want to change the entry meta to have 200 instead of 300 to be a little bit thinner. If we refresh, yeah, this is awesome. This separation, the difference is way more obvious with regular and thin, and I like the header as it is. We can create a little bit of more space. We can create an exception here because in the design file we have a little bit of more space. We have a little bit of top space here, so we can create a little bit of separation. First of all, let's access here. So if we are in the standard format image, we want to give it a margin top of 50 pixel, and the H1 tag can have a margin top of 20 pixels. Save it. Go back here, a little bit of separation. So the H1 tag, if we get the margin top, it's inside. So let's go padding, Okay, we have to define the padding because the padding is inside just a padding top of 10 pixel. Way better, way more separated. So now we have to align these excerpt at the bottom. Actually, I want this image to be slightly bigger. So instead of 500, 550, I like a more prominent featured image. Let's go 600 and it's gonna be way better. We have a lot of freedoms because of course we design by ourselves the design file, so we don't have to change it. Sometimes happens when you're working in a company or you're just doing development and you have to stick with the design that a designer provided to you. So you have to actually do everything accurately and precisely how the design is. But because this thing, we did it by ourselves, it's like our creation, we can edit it as we want. If we don't like the results on the web page, we can slightly tweak the style to make it look different. So now I want this excerpt to be bottom aligned with a nice gradient at the background, because I don't know, maybe the bottom picture could be, the background picture could be a lighter picture, so the white text on a light background probably could be hard to read. So first of all, let's apply the same style that we have here for the text shadow on this entire area. And if I remember correctly, in here we have here the header container as this text shadow. So I want this text shadow to be consistent throughout all my sites. So what I could do, I could create a generic class to include in all our classes. So let's copy this. Let's access our mixins, or we can create a partial. So let's create a new file called _partials.scss. And inside here, let's use this text shadow class. Let's paste this stuff here. Of course, let's grab the header and paste the header here, and let's use partials. Oh, actually these are not partials. I don't want this to be a partial, but I want this to be a placeholder. A placeholder is a portion of code that we can reuse multiple times. So instead of partial, sorry, this entire I'm getting confused. This entire folder, the base folder, is made of partial placeholders. The partials are partial files, like a not complete file that we can include, but the placeholder are declaration of portions, not partial, portions of declaration that we can include dynamically inside our other declaration. And we declare a placeholder with the percentage style, the percentage symbol. So now inside the sunset.css, here where we are calling the text shadow, instead of rewriting the class, we can just use the code at extend, and we can call the percentage text dash shadow, and we copy. Usually the placeholders are declared at the beginning of our classes. So let's save it. Let's go back. Of course, here, in order to use this placeholder, we have to include it. We have to call it properly. So let's call it right below the mixing, and let's call placeholders, and let's just copy these and has a comment, maybe give it more space so it's more organized. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. And of course, nothing changed because we included the placeholder with the text shadow. But if we remove the extend here for a second, we cut it, we save it, and we refresh this entire page, you notice here the text shadows disappear because we're not extending anymore that placeholder. And now we can use this text shadow placeholder wherever we want. And because I want it inside my sunset format image, whatever text inside the sunset format image, but especially inside the entry header, I want to have the text shadow, I can put the extend text shadow. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh it. And now also this one, if we access inspect element and we scroll down, we notice that the declaration of the container has the text shadow. So if we remove it, we don't have the text shadow anymore. It's everything nice and tight here. Now let's take care of the excerpt, or in my case of the caption that I wanna style. So what we could do, we could change, just leave it instead of entry excerpt, we wanna use a caption. I'm gonna leave entry excerpt because in the sunset.css file, we already have a nice margin for our caption, and we have already styled the excerpt in the way that I wanna maintain, so everything's gonna be consistent. But I want to apply a new style to it. So instead of just entry excerpt, I can give it also image dash caption option, and I can call this one, and I could do two things, or I could keep going and writing something here or another class, or I could simply put ampersand dot image caption, so I can override these two stuff. I like to keep everything separated, so it's fine to just write again the entry excerpt class. As far as I don't override these values, I don't write on top of this, and I don't rewrite this value that I already declared, I can reuse the same class. So entry excerpt, entry dash excerpt, open curly brackets, ampersand dot image caption. We can do image caption is a position absolute, left 0, bottom 0, and right 0. I don't declare a top value, a top attribute, so this entry excerpt, because it has the class image caption, is going to be attached to the bottom. Plus, I want to declare a little bit of gradient. Let's refresh here. Now we have this nicely aligned to the bottom, but now I want to create a little bit of more margin, and especially a little bit more padding for the paragraph, whatever container, whatever text is inside. So let's go inside one level inside the brackets. Let's write a P, and we can create margin 20 pixel and 0, so it's gonna have a 20 pixel margin top and bottom, and now we have more space, more line. Of course, here in the design we have way much space and way much margin. We can include that if we want. I don't know, I'm not sure, but anyway, we can just to simulate a little bit better our style. Yeah, let's maybe go back to 40. Yeah, this looks better. So now you notice what I was talking about before. Now we have this white text, and here we have the reflection of the moon on the water, and this text is not really readable. So what we could do, we could put a dynamic gradient at the bottom underneath. And gradients are always tricky because sometimes they don't work. You have to declare a lot of code. So in order to do that, I suggest you to go on this site, the Ultimate CSS Gradient by ColorZilla, and it's amazing. You can pick and generate your gradient, and it's gonna create the code for you. You can decide whatever code you want, and you can include all the options that you want. It also has a map of browser compatibility, and you notice that after the inglorious and awful Internet Explorer 9, pretty much all the modern browsers are supporting this, but if you want, you can include the support for IE. Is gonna create another code for you just specifically for Internet Explorer, but we don't really care about Internet Explorer 9, just like keep the modern browser and it's gonna be good to go. So let's generate our gradient. Let's pick the first one that is gonna be black. And also the second one is gonna be completely black. But the first one, because it's the one on top, we can select the marker on top and we can change the opacity and location. I want the opacity to be 0. So now we have a nice gradient that goes from black to 100% black to 0% opacity black. And here we wanna remove a little bit of opacity also. We don't want a thick, darker black. So let's go maybe 50% of opacity. Perfect. So here we have the option to switch to SCSS format, but in order to use that, we should use a library called Compass, that it's a huge collection of SASS mixing and functionalities. In this case, is importing the Compass functionality to handle gradient, and it's included filter gradient and background image gradient. We don't have Compass, we're not using Compass, so we can include the CSS standard format, but because we are using partials, we could include it as a placeholder here, create a class called percentage background dash gradient, and let's paste everything here. Let's remove some comment. Even if we don't need to remove some comment, everything's going to be compressed. At least now we have this background gradient option that we can save, and inside here we can include, or to be accurate, extend that placeholder, and let's put the percentage background gradient and semicolon. Save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh, and now we have this background color. So here something's happening. The position absolute is going actually absolute all over the place. We have to limit the stuff to the container of the header. To do that, we have to just simply specify a position relative to the entry header, that is the actual container that we want to limit our entry excerpt. So just like position relative semicolon, save it. Let's refresh, and now it's relative to this the container. Something happening here, so it's creating bottom margin or something. So let's just access our inspector and check. Of course, the entry excerpt is inheriting the margin of the first declaration, the entry excerpt, and we want to override this. So we can do that by writing entry excerpt. We can override the margin 0 only if the entry excerpt has an image caption. So we want this margin 0, and it's going to override only in the case we have an image caption class and not the standard entry excerpt. So let's refresh it, and now we don't have this footer margin that was bothering us. Let's scroll down, let's check the excerpt here. Nothing changed because we are not affecting in any way these other class. And now we have a nice space here. We have the title that is clickable, these two options that are clickable, and we have this big future image. So now there's a problem. What happened if the user, for example, accesses the backend and removes the future image? We remove the future image, we update the file, let's refresh. Boom, we don't have anymore the header, we don't have the title, we don't have any link, we have just this horrible footer. It's because the way we wrote this code. So we are generating the header only if the the current post has a post thumbnail, and that's good. That's a good practice, because we don't want to call these get post thumbnail ID or WP get attachment URL to an empty value, because if we don't have the post thumbnail, we cannot retrieve this stuff. So let's maintain this option, but let's extend it a little bit. We want to create a little bit more conditions to check if the user has a post thumbnail, or if the user has an image uploaded inside, or if the user has nothing, like not even an image. So we're always going to use this future image, but it's going to be dynamically updated based on the options of the user. So with this statement, we're checking if the post has a post thumbnail. Otherwise, we can do an else, and we can close the end if here, so we don't need to close it here, and we don't need to indent this stuff, because all this is going to be printed anyway, no matter what result we have. But if the post doesn't have a post thumbnail, we have to check if the post has whatever type of attached media inside here. So first of all, we have to declare this variable, because could happen in this check that the future image is completely empty. So in order to avoid to pass to PHP and say to echo a variable that has not even been declared, let's just declare the variable even if it's empty. So let's use future image, and let's declare it as an empty variable. At least we're not gonna trigger any error, and even if this one is going to be just an empty string. The variable exists, and we're not going to try to print something that doesn't exist. Now here we have to check inside the post if the post has an image uploaded. So let's access our administration panel. Let's access our post and be sure that we remove the featured image, but we want to upload a picture inside the body of our image post title. So let's add media, and I'm gonna upload, of course, the same picture because it's the one that I wanna use. It doesn't matter if you specify a specific size or if you have a link to the picture, if you align it. All these stuff are not gonna affect our code. So just upload this picture and update the blog post with the picture inside the content of the body. Of course, if we refresh here, nothing's gonna change, but let's create a little bit of magic in PHP. Here we have to retrieve all the attachments, and we can do that, all the attachment to a specific post. To do that, let's call a variable called attachments. Let's create a variable, and let's use a function of PHP to get a specific list of posts assigned to this current post. And the function to use is, of course, get underscore posts. And inside here, we can declare a list. Let's put a semicolon, of course. We can declare a list of array, a list of attributes inside an array to tell WordPress what kind of information we want to retrieve. First of all, we have to declare, let's go on another line, so maybe it's easier to follow. The first attribute that we want to declare, we want to pass, is the post type. We don't want any type of post type other than the attachment. So if you followed my previous series, the tutorial WordPress 101 for beginner developers, you will know that WordPress saves everything as a post type. So a post, a page, an attachment, whatever, it's saved, a custom post type is saved as a post type. So we can retrieve the post type. Attachment is gonna have only images inside. And let's put a comma. The second value, I want just one image because I don't need the full list. This image blog post could have like 20 different images uploaded inside, so I want just the number posts equal to 1. So we're gonna limit the number of posts that we are retrieving just to 1. And we have to declare what kind of parent we want to check, in which post we want to check. Otherwise, it's going to retrieve all the attachments that we ever uploaded to WordPress. It's going to be just a gigantic query to do in our database. So let's limit everything only to this post by declaring post parent and declaring the post parent to be this one. So we can use the usual get d underscore id. And that's it. Let's save it. Now we have these attachments that if we print, it's going to be an array. So we can use the var dump to print the attachments variable. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. And now here we have an array of just one, of course, because we have just one image. And if you see here inside this list of gibberish and all this information, we have a value called GUID, is the actual URL of the attachment, but we don't need to access that. What we need is just the ID, the information that we want for the specific attachment. So let's keep going and let's create another check, and let's check if attachments, the variable is not empty. We're just writing if attachment. So if this variable has something inside, we can do a little bit of magic. And if here, semicolon, and we can do a loop. We have to access the post, we have to access this array, and even if this array is just formed by one value, we have to loop through this array to actually navigate inside it properly. For each $attachments has $attachment single, and and for each semicolon, we can call again the featured image equal, and here we can use this exact same function, wp-get attachment URL, but instead of writing the post ID, now we have to write the thumbnail ID. So instead of navigating inside the thumbnail ID and then the post ID, we already have the attachment ID that we can retrieve by writing attachment and navigating inside the object array and retrieve the attachment ID. That, if you remember, is the same exact value here, where we have all uppercase ID value inside our array. And now we have the URL of the first image attached, uploaded to our blog post. So this feature image is gonna print our image. Let's refresh. And now we have the exact same image. Of course, as a test, we can always confirm by deleting this stuff and uploading another image. For example, this blurry one that I used in the header. Let's update. Let's check the front end. Let's refresh. It's still, that's not good. That shouldn't happen. It's still grabbing this image, even if I uploaded the other one. Oh, sorry, I wrote wrongly. It's not number post, but it's post per page, and it's post parent. It's not post parents, so I have to declare singular and post per page. Sorry for the typo. So this is post per page, posts per page. There is just one, and it's post parent, not post parents. That's why it was happening, was actually grabbing all the images ever attached in these entire environment. So here, if you notice, it doesn't get anything else because nothing is attached. I remove manually all the attachments. So if we re-upload again this image, insert into post, and we update, we refresh the front end, of course is gonna get this image. If we do the same, we remove this one, we update, we get, and let's upload again the insert into the post, another one, and again the previous picture. Let's update, let's refresh the front end. It's gonna replace with whatever picture we uploaded last. As just a heads up, in the media library, you can check, if you go in the list view, you can check what image is attached to what post format in the uploaded to. So even if the header is the header image, is attached now to the image post title because I uploaded or I inserted into the content section. So to avoid this problem, we can always click detach, and this image is not going to be attached anymore to that post. It's not going to be retrieved. But anyway, WordPress is going to always retrieve the most recent uploaded picture, the most recent attached picture to that specific post. To clean things a little bit, because this is kind of a long function, we can just copy this and create a separated function. We already have the theme support options here, where we are using the sunset posted footer and sunset posted media with the blog loop custom functions. We can create another custom function called function get maybe sunset underscore get attachment. And here we don't have to pass any value. Let's scroll back here, and we can, instead of assigning the feature image, we can use these output, the usual output variable, and then return the output variable. So in this way, we can use this output variable to be stored inside our future image variable. So let's remove all this huge function that we don't want this to be cluttered inside our blog loop. Let's call this function that is going to return the output, and it's going to print inside our future image. Let's refresh here. And we have it here. We could extend, we could clean even more this stuff. We can just simply call this entire function and this entire variable just once and put everything inside. So let's do that actually. Let's call just future image, it's equal to sunset get image, and let's transfer all this stuff inside the function. So everything's gonna be even cleaner and even more organized. So let's use the output. It's equal to empty. So even if all this kind of stuff, they're not gonna work, we're gonna have the output to be passed as an empty return and not passing something that is not actually generated. So if has post timeline, we still are inside the post loop, so we don't have to check for the ID. We can call the output to be carry to store the attachment URL. Otherwise, we can put all this stuff inside again, as it was before, as it was in our front end, as it was in our blog loop, but we don't want that. So let's clean a little bit, and if, and we can just simply return the output. Save it. Let's go back here, save also this file, and now we have this is just beautiful. And you know what we could do if we want to completely remove this? You know what? We could just echo the function, because that's how PHP and that's how WordPress work. We can echo directly the function with sunset get attachment, and we remove all the top part. Do you remember? Like, we had this massive function here, and of course if we refresh the front end, everything works. There's nothing changed, and everything is super nice and super tight. And of course, as a safety precaution, because we are updating, we are actually affecting the post loop, let's reset the post data at the end of our checking, at the end of our grabbing whatever we need with the function wp_ reset post data. So in this way, we're not gonna affect the actual blog loop inside our index, and we're not gonna disrupt our homepage. So it's pretty much it for today's lesson. We saw how to generate another post format file for the specific image post format. We saw how to reuse in a smart way all the classes that we previously generated, and we created a nice function to handle automatically all the attachments. And because this function, the sunset get attachment, it's global, is not tied to just the post image format, we can reuse it in the future whenever we need inside our blog, inside our pages, inside our other type of post format, and we can extend that specific function by passing some unique variables that we're gonna see in the next few lessons. So thank you again guys for checking this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you have a couple of minutes, just check the support me section in my website, where you can find all different ways to support me and support my channel and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!